Okay, we're going to get started with this tutorial on texturing a head. This is going to be a pretty quick tutorial. It's a technique that I've developed over the years of doing these textures for heads for different projects at work. Just to show you here real quickly, I've got an image from 3D.sk, which is a great resource for head images and other texture references. But as you can see here, I've made a couple of changes to the texture itself. Clearly, I've removed the ears. I've actually taken, one of the ears, and you can do, two if you think you need, two different ears. Move them down here, but I've just got one because one ear, is going to be fine for what we're doing. But some of the other things that I did, as you can tell, is I've actually removed the holes for the nose, the nostrils, and other major lines, creases on his face, or other major lines around the nose. I just found that these lines make texturing really hard to try to match up and keep everything looking good if with those lines, but by removing those lines, it frees you up a little bit more. I I also probably should do the same thing for the lips so that you can't see this hard line. But for now, we're just going to leave it because I just want to show you the good overview of the process. And so let's go ahead and get going with this. I'm going to go ahead and apply the texture to our mesh here. And as you can see, the default texture is not really too great, the alignment. So I'm going to put a UV map, and we're going to go with cylindrical. And when we set it to cylindrical, it's actually going to do its best effort to take that texture that we have and wrap it around the head, as you can see here. A couple of things that we need to do to make our big global macro adjustments we can use if we go into sub-object mode of our UVW map, and we can actually use our scale tool and move tool and rotate tool to actually help line this thing up. The first thing that I'm going to look for here is to try to get the eyes lined up. So I'm going to use let's actually go into sub-object mode here. Alright. Scale this in on the X little ways, and I can see where the eyes are on the mesh. So I'm going to move that up here a little bit. And I can see that this does a pretty good job. You might even need to move it around to get that perfect alignment. So I can see here, if I go into wireframe, I can see where the tear ducts are and where the tear ducts are in the texture, and they're very close. I think a little bit of scaling, a little bit of moving, we might be able to get this lined up really good. Now keep in mind, this first pass is just something to give us a quick guideline. We want to try to get this as good as we can. We can tell already that it's really not too bad. And minor things we can actually fix with the unwrap. But I think this is looking pretty good. I like the overall placement of everything. The mouth is pretty close. I like the placement of the hair and everything, but I think that this open spot, I can move this back a little bit. I can actually get that wrapping around my ears. Now, that adjustment clearly has stretched the eyes out. So let's scale it back up, get those eyes back again. And as you can tell, the envelope of the UVW map, the cylindrical gizmo, is fitting the head a lot more closely now. I'm actually pretty happy with this. I think the eyes are good. I like where the ears will be. So I'm actually going to go ahead and stop here. And I've got my convert to editable poly up here on my own toolbar. So I'm just going to go ahead and collapse this down at this point and just go ahead and hit save. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and add the Unwrap modifier. And let's start doing some tweaking. So go into it, and I'm going to open UV editor. And let's go ahead and come up here and load in the texture that we have applied so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to make this as big as we can. Now, this is an area where you really want to have as much screen real estate as possible. So, for example, this would be I would actually have this window on my second monitor so that I can see that and see what's going on here in Max very clearly. So I'm going to try to do my best to keep both things viewable here. And let's see, there's the eyes are still there. So one of the things that I want to get away from is I don't want to see the eyeball mesh. That's just, it's just information that I don't need to be concerned with at all. So what I can do, and what's probably actually not a terrible idea, this would be to go into editable. You know what? Let me just delete the unwrap. We haven't done anything. Go into the element mode, and I'm just going to select those eyeballs. I mean, they're kind of close right now as far as their textures are concerned. If you hit F2 with it selected, you can see what it looks like. But I'm just going to go ahead and detach this from the model. I can always reattach it later. I'll just call this eyes. But by doing this, and as you can see, I can go into unwrap, add an unwrap to this guy. Let's go into face and open. And you see if I add the thing here again, I can actually come in here and let's get more. Let's go ahead and get these eyes lined up the way we want. So it's pretty close. Let's just move this over a little bit. Okay, that eye is good. Let's grab this guy. That eye is actually really good. And let's get that lined up about like that. That looks pretty good. Alright, with that adjustment done, I can go ahead and convert to editable poly, collapse it down again. So now with our head, let's go to unwrap again, open it once more, set the texture, and as you can see, we don't have all that extraneous mesh to look at, and you also notice that I don't have anything inside the mouth at this point. Clearly we would want to have tongue and the inside of the mouth cavity, but that's just at this stage of the game, it's just a lot easier to not worry with that. So with this, I'm really close to having this done. I got a little bit of adjustment to do, and where I'm going to start is with these edges. I'm just gonna, what I just want to have is I want to have these guys in the center of the eye so that I can see clearly where what the visible edges and vertices and everything are, and because these guys represent the seam, and you can tell that green is the seam. So these guys are, buried inside the eye. You're never going to see them, so their placement is irrelevant. And you can see that they get stretched back all the way. So the next vertice, as you can tell here, the next vertice in are these guys. So I can see clearly that, this edge represents the edge of the eye that I do see. So clearly I can tell where the issues are. So what I'm going to do, I can tell that all these guys need to come over a little bit. So I'm going to grab from, let's say, right here, grab these guys. I'm going to come down and turn on my soft selection and just barely. I don't want to do a huge adjustment here. I just want to move a little bit. To get that eye covered back in. Now the problem with making these kind of adjustments that you gotta watch out for, as you move them, that you don't crowd these other vertices, because then you'll start getting a little bit of stretching. So again, I'm gonna take my soft selection. I can see I'm out just a little ways. Pull this up. I'm going to grab just this guy here, move that up. Alright. And pretty happy with this eye. Probably would be a terrible idea to go ahead and grab this area, which is the tear duct, and go ahead and get that lined up with the tear duct. Alright, let's go ahead and do the other eye. And I'll start with the tear duct. Grab that, move it over into place. And I'm going to turn off soft selection real quick so I can grab these guys, the seam here. And we'll just quickly move these into place so that we can clearly see what we're doing. Alright, that's good enough. So again, same situation. So let's grab like these guys right here, turn our soft selection back on. The setting is still there, so we should be pretty good. And so as I'm doing this, I'm watching what's going on over here. I'm watching the placement over here, so it'll help me to, do I need to move it up or down? This guy right here, it's pretty good. Got a little bit happening up here, which we can tell. Now sometimes you might need to either remove the soft selection altogether and come in and just make fine adjustments, or the soft selection can help you. I recommend using the soft selection. Let it help as much as possible, but there are times that we might want to turn it off. Now we're going to get some stretching like this, and this is just because we're trying to jumpstart the texture. Clearly, we would, if we're going to do this for a full-blown animation project where we want to be able to see the details, then we would need to go into Photoshop and remove the eyelashes and even remove the eye from this texture itself, and actually make it to where the eye is closed, and because all the eyelashes will be made inside the program. But for now, I think that this does pretty good. The last thing that I'm going to do is fix the mouth. I can see my nose is pretty well set up. If I wanted if I wanted to go in here and darken in the nasal cavity, I can see I've got the vertices right here where I could actually move these down and paint a dark spot right here, and then that would make that darker. But I'm okay with what this looks like for now. What I do want to do is get this mouth lined up, so what I'm going to focus on is running right through here from these edges. I'm just going to grab the whole mouth like this. Got my soft selection on, and clearly what I want to do is just move these guys, and I can see as I move this, you can see where the stretching's occurring on the left, and that's because where the fall off is on the soft selection. So a lot of times your adjustments will be very minor, so I'm just looking to try to find, and it's always good to undo, and if you need to increase your fall off and move it around. So see, this size fall off is actually giving me pretty good mobility for just getting a basic alignment. And now what I want to do is I want to get the corners of my mouth. Now this fall off might be too much. I mean, I can see I'm reaching all the way up here to the nose, so I'm going to bring that down a little bit. I'm just going to grab the corner of the mouth, and I'm going to just try to directly move it there. I can tell this is too much stretching, so what I might need to do is grab, let's say, this much of the area, and maybe even bump the soft selection up a little bit. But I want to get this area over here. Now that doesn't look great. I'm getting some stretch in there. So what we might need to do is see if we can get this lined up okay. And let me see what kind of, we might need to make some adjustments to our cheek out here. And I think what's going to actually end up being the best decision is to go back into Photoshop and remove this little crease, because that crease obviously is occurring on the actual, the face. But here in Max we have our own mesh that's creating that crease. So I'm just going to get this guy lined up as best I can. I think the lips are actually not too bad. Can pick on it directly and kind of move it around and see what you get. And I think that's pretty good. I can see there's the line of the lips. So as I move it up or down, I can see where that line is, so I can get a good placement idea there. But clearly, for me, the best decision for this mouth to get it really the way that I want is to remove this area of the texture, the same way that I fix the nostrils and everything. But so we got a little bit of the neck, and I can see from moving the mouth around, we have a little bit more stretching happening down here. But we need to get all of this onto the texture, and easiest way is just to start moving it, watching out for stretching. Of course, this part of the mesh is depending on what you're using this for. This might or might not be covered up with other parts of the mesh. Maybe it's inside of a military vest or armor or something. You might not be able to see it, but if you can see it, then clearly going to have to take particular care of how you texture these guys, but for right now, just to get you familiar with this technique, I'm just going to quickly get these guys on here. For example, projects that I'm working on right now at work, I don't really need to be too concerned about what's going on down here. So this particular technique works good for me. I don't want to mess up too much of that hairline, because you can see right there where I've messed up the seam. And the best thing for me to do at this point is see how far back I can go. Alright, so I think that's good. And I'm just gonna quickly, hopefully you can see kind of the technique here. And as with anything, unwrapping any texture, there's no quick fix. This technique that I've shown you here is about as quick of a fix as I've seen for getting rapid results for a head texture. Of course, we have the ear, and what I recommend for the ear is grabbing these guys itself. Let's see if we come in here. Let's find a good angle. Hold control, and I just add in, and I can see clearly what's going on over here. And what I want is to essentially grab all the vertices that represent the ear, where these guys are part of the head. I want all these, and then we can texture these guys separately. And just quickly grab some vertices. I could do the grow selection over here, but I don't want to start grabbing a bunch of vertices I don't want. I'm going to do it once though. I think once might help. So I can see I've grabbed some, so I just hold Alt and deselect those. But that helped me grab a lot of the stuff in here I was missing. And I think for the most part, let's grow again. Alright, I think it's safe to say I got all the ear. And let's hold Alt and deselect these guys. Alright, so everything but these last, I think I'm going to leave that one right there. Alright, so with that ear selected, let's go ahead and do a planar projection. Let's see. Where did my editor go? Okay. Let's turn off this soft selection. And I really should have done this with the polygon being selected. So let's just quickly, I got my, turn my F2. Sorry about all that vertice nonsense. Okay, grow. Gotta grow one more time, one more time. It's just so much easier to deselect what you don't want sometimes, as you can see. This is a lot of time spent selecting vertices or faces. Alright, got that. So I'm not going to do the other ear. I'm not going to let you suffer through watching that crap again. So with this, come down, do a planar projection. We see that it takes our ear, does a, whoops, let's keep this where we can see it. Now, doing peels and, you know, all those things are good, but for right now, I just want to get this guy, so let's turn off planar. Just want to scale this down, get it into place. I can see that my ear needs to be flipped, so I'll come over here and mirror horizontal. And let me, oops, getting carried away from me there. I'm going to just try to scale this kind of quickly, get it into place. We can do adjustments, further adjustments later. I just want to get this thing into place real quick and take a look and see what we got. So it's a bit of a mess. We have some obvious work to do getting these guys, and you know, and I think that relaxing and could very well help. Do a little bit of relax, keep boundary points fixed, start relax a little bit. So that's getting all kinds of jumbled, and I guarantee you that's not going to look good over here. So without spending too much more time on this, I know that these guys, these vertices here, represent the inside of this ear, way down there in that seam. Those guys, and they clearly represent what should be back in here. So if I were to, let's just grab them real quick, just move them around. I see I grabbed one, didn't need to grab. There we go. So that guy right there doesn't need to be part of that selection. So kind of the same way we tweak the rest of the face. I think you would be safe to start going through and doing those same kind of adjustments here on the ear. Now, when it comes to ears, you can see, you know, this is okay, and you know, you definitely want to have the ear textured correctly. But the process is, you know, the process is there. do some adjustments in your editor, move some vertices, see what you got, and and a lot of times what I have found to be true is that the the actual detail of the ear itself that's on the texture gets in the way. And what you end up doing is, really just kind of cleaning up and making this area not so detailed, but it's just more of, the flesh colors. And because you got to remember, if you've got an ear like this, the geometry is there. So when we see all this special detail of these ears and all that stuff, that's nice if you're faking an ear and you've got like 8 polygons sitting right here, and then this is having this kind of detail, the texture of an ear is great. But when you actually have the mesh detail here, then clearly you can see how the detail of the texture is going to get in the way, and you better have it lined up perfectly. Which is why you can see that I got rid of that detail on the nose, and why getting rid of it over here is going to help. But the alignment for for the most part, this guy's is done pretty good. He's ready to go. There's more tweaking to be done clearly, but hopefully this helps you see how just the procedure, the techniques of getting a head textured relatively quickly. Understanding that there's no one button that's going to do it for you, but this is as close of a technique as I found. I hope that this video helps you. And the next video I'm going to do is actually showing you how to go about creating your own head reference textures to apply to these kind of characters. So see you in the next one.